The following gameplay is rated Atlanta. No responsibility is accepted for any purchase or use of an Atlanta or any subsequent damage to your stats, sanity, or keyboard. Atlanta is not for everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Yisrael, the game is World of Warships, and welcome to a battle that's going to be familiar, at least in part, to anyone who watches the mighty Jingles. Yep, this is the 66 kill air massacre that featured on Why You Have to Be Mad 3, the unedited, unexpurgated, and uncensored edition. All the bits that were too legit for Jingles to broadcast. So, the Atlanta, the Tier 7 joke ship. 5-inch guns, torpedoes so bad even Russian destroyers wouldn't touch them. Armour that, well, just about qualifies as tin can status, and a health pool that is frankly ludicrously small. It is a death trap if you try and fight another heavy cruiser in it. If you try and fight aircraft in it, or if you're engaging in some very unfair fights, well, then it's a different story. Welcome to Two Brothers. The game mode is Domination. Point A in the west, B in the north, C in the south, D in the east. What's becoming a standard strategy in random starts to play out here. The destroyers are going to go for points A and D. They're going to leave B to the cruisers, mostly because, well, we can secure the cap almost as fast as they can. I'm moving out at half power to start with. That is a habit I've learned from ranked and, to a lesser extent, random in the Atlanta. Atlanta, of course, isn't really a cruiser despite her official designation. As I've mentioned, she has got destroyer-grade armour, destroyer-grade guns, albeit a lot of them, and let's not talk about the torpedoes. What that means is that you can't put her in the front line. If you are on point as an Atlanta, you are probably going to die, because at this tier, most people are throwing around 203mm plus guns, and, well, you have a citadel space and a normal destroyer doesn't, so even minor hits do tend to do rather a lot of damage. Luckily, in the last couple of patches, Wargaming have strengthened the turret somewhat, because it was a rare engagement that didn't leave you down at least one or two of your main battery turrets. It got rather irritating at times. So, just coming up on point B, and the Langley, who has probably congratulated himself on avoiding all our fighters, has just blundered into my outer flak zone, and now he's hit my inner flak zone, and now they're all dead. And defensive fire, well, that was probably overkill. I think I had a slight case of fat finger syndrome when I triggered that one. Not that it's going to be much consolation to the Hiryu's fighters, who are also in my outer flak zone, up to 7.2 kilometers. They are going to get very nastily burned, but it's the torpedo bombers who get the worst of it as I switch lock over onto them and down them before they can even get an attack run started, much less get their torpedoes off. The Langley's fighters blunder into the 7.2 kilometer outer kill zone and don't have time to blunder out again before they're all shredded as defensive fire just runs out. Why 7.2 kilometers? Because Atlanta's basic flak range is 5 kilometers, which is, well, it's pretty garbage to be honest. But if you load AA Mod 2 for 20% and you load Advanced Firing Training for another 20%, that gets you, yep, 7.2 kilometers, and that makes it a much nastier proposition because, of course, once you have manual control of AA fitted as well, all 16 of your 5-inch guns double up their damage output in the flak roll. So that works out as a total of 240 DPS when you're locked onto a single target. Here comes the next round of bombers from the Langley, and 6 kilometers, bang bang, and once the numbers catch up, bang bang, and that's the end of the Langley's dive bombers. His fighters will be along in a minute, by the way. Of more concern is the fact that the enemy surface fleet is starting to engage. Now, this is the Atlanta's other dirty specialty. Like I say, this is all the stuff in the video that was too lewd for Jingles. 5-inch ballistic arcs going into orbit? This is how you use that to your advantage, ladies and gentlemen. Just clip a few of Hiryu's planes as they exit from their attack runs and get a bit too close. But I'm firing over the headland. Even if that Fuso was trying to lock on and acquire me, he'd be finding it fairly difficult because, well, there's a dirty great lump of land in the way. And yeah, if you want to start rage with an Atlanta, this is how you do it. Slowly backing up just to keep line of sight obscured as long as I can. And we'll ignore that destroyer for a bit. And the Langley's finally wised up. His torpedo bombs are staying at 8 kilometers, so they're not going to fall to me either. Of course, that particular dirty trick only lasts until the enemy clears the headland, at which point you have to motor again. So, ballistic arcs from the 5-inch, well, they're a little sensitive to range. Actually, that's a lie, they're massively sensitive to range. But it doesn't matter since the Fuso has got 4 cruisers and a destroyer shooting at him, and the carrier is lining up for a go as well. So we'll put one broadside in as a fare thee well, and then get back to playing dirty in best Atlanta tradition. Just check the positioning and start firing into the New York. Now, here's where I've had to compromise a bit. Bear in mind that I have got 2 4-point skills on this captain already. What I don't have is Demolition Expert. So I'm down on my fire chance. Not that it really matters to this New York at the moment, because, well, ship's still on fire, but it's less of a fire starting machine than it could be. And I must admit that I'm seriously considering passing on Concealment Expert on this ship's build in order to get Demolition Expert and basic fire training in. Set the Myoko on fire as well, load armour piercing. It's a marginal shot here. Oh, watch it with those torpedoes, mate. And in fact, I'm a bit too far away. You can see that the 5-inch AP is coming down and it's bouncing off the Myoko's armour belt. In fact, most of it's missing because I'm aiming for the waterline citadel. So instead, just switch back on the ammo, load high explosive instead, and as he comes into the reverse, one final barrage of high X finishes him off. And then the Hiryu blunders his fighters into range, and oh looky, defensive fires back up. Thank you so very much. Bring forth the wood chipper. Because, let's face it, you could have saved some time by piling your aircraft into one of those on your own flight deck. And oh look, his torpedo bombs have just hit the close range flak zone of 4 kilometers, whereby my damage output goes up to 300 DPS, more or less, and that's before you add in defensive fire, so what's that, 360 damage per second total into these bombers? I mean, it's no wonder they dropped like flies. However, that unfortunately is more or less the end of the happy times. Got the Langley visible, but he's out of range, and oh, that's a Pensacola. 10 203mm guns, better armour, and bigger guns, and they're all pointing at me. This is a fair fight. Fair fights are for idiots if you're in an Atlanta, or any other ship actually, but they get you killed much faster in an Atlanta. So, shut down the guns for a second. We're right at the edge of detection range relative to that Pensa, so I'm just going to tiptoe out the way, angle away, and that probably saves me from what would have been a even nastier hit, but I've still lost 20% of my health to one broadside, and it wasn't even a solid hit. However, we're now undetected. We're stealthed up again, so I can start making a run for sea, just as the Mutsuki in the channel blows away one of our cruisers. He's also nailed one of our destroyers. Don't ask me what happened in there, I still haven't quite worked out what happened. How does a cruiser and a destroyer lose to Little Miss Denial herself? Don't ask me, ladies and gentlemen, it happened. I was as stunned as the rest of you are doubtless going to be. I'll never find out, of course, the replay is incompatible with the new patch. But now I've got line of sight on the Langley, so I can turn into him. I'm not actually going to get contact with him because our own carrier is about to finish the poor sod off. He literally got no XP from this battle. I ate pretty much his entire air group, and then he got sank before he could even move. Remember what I said about fair fights against heavy cruisers being a bad idea? Well, fair fights are a bad idea. Blindsiding a guy when he's in a guns duel with one of our other cruisers? Oh yeah, I'm all for that. Rain death upon him. High explosive again because, well, the range is too far out for the AP to work, and the angle's far too bad anyway. I'd be leery of trying AP with even 203 if the target was giving me these kinds of angles on bow. However, the friendly ship has done most of the work. and we'll just finish him off. Some of these kills may not be entirely legit, and it does illustrate why last kill missions aren't necessarily good in this game. When almost every kill is shared, well, giving the credit to the guy who got the last trivial hit in, meh. This was almost the least deserved Kraken of my career. Here's another example, by the way, of missions influencing player behaviour. I've just set this hero on fire twice, he's not put it out. Now, I could load armour piercing and try for citadel hits even at this kind of range. It's an aircraft carrier, it's got tin plate for armour. But I don't. Instead, I keep spamming high X. Why? Because I was chasing the final stage of the Arpeggio Huguro mission at the time, and I was chasing main battery hits in consequence. I didn't want this guy to die too fast, at least not before I could slam several dozen high X rounds into him and whack the hit pinata for everything it was worth. I'm on fire, which is bad, but I've also got torpedoes coming in, so I'm holding my damage control until I'm certain I'm not going to get hit by the torpedoes. Now I'm safe, pop damage control, put the fire out. I've traded about 2,000-3,000 health, even from that relatively short burn, to make sure that I had damage control ready if I did somehow eat a torpedo and started to flood. And that staggered launch, even though I suspect it wasn't deliberate this time, is a fairly common tactic you'll see from carrier drivers. They'll come in first with the dive bombers, set you on fire, because dive bomber bombs, that's probably not the best phrasing, are very good at starting fires. They'll then watch you, they'll see you put the fire out, which means they know your damage control's on cooldown, then they'll send in the torpedo bombers, then they'll get you flooding, and you've got no way to control it. You have got to eat the damage. And flooding is far nastier than fire for damage, even if it's much less dramatic in terms of visuals and noise. So watch out for that tactic, ladies and gentlemen. If you have got multiple bomber squadrons coming at you, wait until they're all dealt with before you pop your damage control. Getting back to the situation at hand, the Mutsuki has just gone down, but now we have a slight problem. It is 4 ships to 3. Now, that wouldn't be an issue, except it's shortly about to be 3 ships to 3, and I'm badly out of position. Yes, I can grab point C, but the enemy is coming into point B, and what they've got is not great for us. The intact Königsberg, yeah, that's a nuisance, but it's doable. Königsberg versus Atlanta, despite the 2-tier gap, is a lot more even than I'd like to admit, mostly because the Königsberg's 9 6-inch guns fire very quickly. I think they've got something like a 4-second reload. They're almost as fast as Atlanta's, they're a lot faster, and they're a lot flatter, and they're a lot better at getting through armour, so yeah. As I say, I would not care to bet on the outcome of that duel. The enemy's also got a Colorado. And, well, 16-inch guns, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want to try fighting that in Atlanta in open water? No, neither do I. So, I can grab C. That beaten-up Alba is probably the least of our problems. That will leave us temporarily 3 points to 1 up, but the enemy has just got into B, neutralising that. So now it's effectively 2 points to 1 up, and there's only 20 points in it, so 1 kill either way is going to turn this around. Now, normally, as I say, this would be far too close to call. We can probably do it if we can get ourselves grouped up, but the enemy aren't going to give us that luxury. They're already tight into their squadron. Their basic plan is going to be to run west, hammer down the York, move into the Hirio, and then take me, and oh wait, scratch that. The Königsberg just detonated, and there goes the Colorado as well. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 detonations in the space of 10 seconds. RNGesus clearly decided that enough was enough. That just leaves one rather sorry-looking Alba, who's on 4,000 health, give or take, and has our York lining up on him. Even if the York is throwing high X, this isn't going to last very long. There goes the Alba's attempts at a citadel. It doesn't achieve all that much. It doesn't get him the kill he needed to survive the next minute. Alba fires again, York's rounds go in, and in a couple of seconds there go the last rounds from the York, and well, the end is nigh. And now it's not nigh anymore. Which brings us to the end stats. So, bearing in mind that this is a premium ship at a standard account, it wasn't doing too badly. 3,100 experience baseline, up to 4,700 per the premium camouflage, 739 free XP and a clear skies medal. You don't see that too often these days. 246 main battery hits, almost got me the Haguro. I needed one more game after this one to finish the job. 66 aircraft, 4 kills, but it has to be said those 4 kills really were not deserved, despite what you might think from that 71,500 damage done. Because if you look at the way the damage was distributed, 38,000 of it went into Hiryu, which is not really a surprise. Now look at the other 3 ships I killed. Less than 4,000 into Miyoko, but it was the last 4,000 damage. Ditto Fuso, ditto Pensacola did a little more to him, and about 16,000 into the New York before he ate a lot of torpedoes and sank unceremoniously. That, if anything, really does show up the weakness of the last kill missions. I mean, if you look at those 3 kills, the Fuso, the Pensa, the Miyoko, did I deserve the credit? Not really. A lot of other people did the heavy lifting there. I mean, that Fuso in particular, I just fired that last salvo and then turned away. It was pure luck that it was my rounds that finished the guy. I hadn't even set him on fire. The Miyoko, granted, no one else was shooting at him at the time, but I imagine that would have changed fairly rapidly. And the Pensacola, well, it was just bad luck that the York didn't get the kill that he'd done so much of the work on. Hopefully Wargaming will take note as people keep making the point that last kill missions just inspire salt and kill stealing and really shouldn't be as heavy a feature as they are in so many of the challenges, missions and boot camps. But hey, we can but hope. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I have been Yusril. That has been the Atlanta Syndrome, too lewd for Jingles, and until next time, farewell.